Hello and welcome to T-Leaves Programming. Today we are gaming like it's 1979. We're going to be playing Wizardry, the Five Ordeals. Now this is, surprisingly to me, a somewhat controversial game. Originally released back in 2006, I think at first for the PlayStation 2 and then later for PCs. It has just been re-released in 2022 on the Steam platform. I've seen a lot of people who I think misunderstand this game and misunderstand it deeply. And that's why I wanted to do a video just doing some gameplay to show you what it's all about. The complaints that I've seen have mostly centered around the idea that it's too expensive. I want to say it's $39 or something on Steam. In fact, let me take a look right now and give you an accurate price. In the US, it is $39.99. Occasionally goes on sale. But I think that belief that this is too expensive misunderstands what the game is. It's easy to look at the store page and conclude that what you're looking at is some scenarios for Wizardry. And it is that, but it's also something much more important. And that is, the Five Ordeals is a Wizardry Construction Set. There is a scenario editor, and there are a fairly large number of user scenarios. Most of them, well, all of them are in Japanese, but a number of them have been translated to English, and more are being translated periodically. The scenario editor itself is still only available in Japanese, but they are working on translating it into English, and I expect to hear more about that in the coming weeks. And definitely once that's finished, at that point I'll do a video showing that off. So here you can see I am looking at the title screen and it says Wizardry Half-Hearted RPG. Well, Half-Hearted RPG, I guess a more accurate translation would be Orthodox RPG, is one of the user-created scenarios. And if I were to go into the game, we're not actually going to play Half-Hearted RPG today, but I want to show you the interface. We're going to go in here, and you can see we have what looks kind of like the traditional Wizardry menu, but things have been given customized names. So it's Umagoya instead of the Adventurers Inn. Instead of Boltax Tavern, it's Dolurargus Tavern. And these things can all be customized on a per scenario basis. If we go to the castle, we can, well, I don't have anyone in the party. Let me grab someone in the party. If we go to the castle, I'll just take that character. We can find out what the goal of this particular scenario is. But I don't actually want to play Half-Hearted RPG today. I wanted to show you a different one. So I'm going to go back to the main menu. And we can go here to where it says Story Select. So the Five Ordeals by default comes with these 5 scenarios: Traveler's Property, Children of the King Selene, The Devoid of Apotheosis, The Pickled Man of Galvin, and The Wheels of Flame. So far, I've only tried Traveler's Property, and let me tell you, oh boy, it's a hard scenario. And that's supposedly the easiest one out of the bunch. The Price of Deception was released sometime after the game came to Steam. It's actually, I think, an older scenario that was brought forward to the Steam version. And this is really your intro scenario, especially if you haven't played Wizardry before. It has a lot of in-game stuff to help you learn the game mechanics. And then there are these additional scenarios and user scenarios. So let's go ahead. I think downloaded works. I didn't want user work list. Okay, we can sort by author, we can sort by different things. We'll just take that. And you can see we've got 17 scenarios here. And these can be and are pretty big. The one that I was just showing you is Half-Hearted RPG. You could see here, I would guess, a little more than halfway through that scenario. And I've already been playing it for 12 hours. So that's quite a lot. So that is what I want to put in your mind about the Five Ordeals. I don't think you should be approaching this as this is just a wizardry scenario and they're trying to charge me $40 for 5 scenarios. I think you should view it as it's those 5 scenarios plus all of the user created scenarios, plus hopefully at some point the English translation of I'm just going to keep calling it this, the Wizardry Construction Set. In addition to these, there are DLC scenarios that are paid, and these are 2 scenarios. One is called Prisoners of the Battles, and the other is The Absence of Misericordia. These are Wizardry Gaiden games that also were released for the PlayStation 2 and Microsoft Windows back in the day. Now they've made this reappearance on Steam, and I think it's a testament to the power of the scenario creator of the Wizardry Construction Set that these games can live on inside the Five Ordeals. Okay, so let's go, and I was in the middle of The Price of Deception. You could see I've been playing it for about 5 hours. And you're going to see that I have not gotten very far in those 5 hours. Why is that? Well, that is because the other thing I've been doing with this game is I've been trying to use this as a test to see how I like using Grid Cartographer to map my wizardry progress. And that has slowed me down quite a lot. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to continue to do that during this playthrough. So let me get my Windows set up here. Let me make sure my recording is still working okay. I'm going to choose Game Start. All right, I have my Grid Cartographer over here. So for this game, you could see that the background images and the names of all these things are different. I actually had left my party in the middle of the dungeon when I decided to record this. And in fact, I did a wordless stream of the first half of me playing this. And I may do a voiceover of that stream and put it on the channel just as kind of bonus content for those of you who absolutely cannot get enough Grid Cartographer action. So we're going to choose Resume here. You could see we could have multiple teams in the dungeon. We have our one team. And let's see how everyone is doing. I've completely forgotten, because I had switched to Half-Hearted RPG, I've forgotten the status of where my team was. So we have a couple of samurais up front. They're holding some unidentified items, and they are mostly okay. We have a couple of priests then not in the second row. One of them's in the first row, one of them's in the second row. We have a thief with a terrible Forgotten Realms name, and we have our mage. Yes, I named her Freerun, don't at me. And we have enough hit points, I think, and spell points. Our priests still have not lost most of their spell points, so they're okay. Do I have any magical effects going? I don't. Can I solve that? Can I cast protection? My priests may not have learned protection yet. It certainly does not look like they have. We'll cast brightness. And I don't know if my mage has anything I can use here. It's always good to cast these buffs if you can. Well, we'll cast a Detect Door, just in case. So now going over here to our map, you could see that I've put the bug right here, mostly just to remind myself of where I was when I stopped playing. So Grid Cartographer is comparatively expensive for a mapping app. And the reason for that is it has a feature. It's really optimized for playing older, obsolete, emulated RPGs. And it has a feature called Game Link, where it will actually monitor the memory of your emulator process. Like in DOSBox, if you were playing Eye of the Beholder or DOS Wizardry. And what it will do is it keeps track of where your character is and what their position is. And it will update it. So you don't actually have to get your position, you don't actually have to keep going back to the Grid Cartographer. You could just play the game. Now, that does not work with Wizardry the Five Ordeals, because Wizardry the Five Ordeals is a modern game and you're not playing it in an emulator. But so you're going to see me going back and forth between the two. I was having a conversation on Reddit, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the opinion was given to me there that really, why not just do it with grid paper? And I don't really have any argument about that. I think grid paper is, in fact, probably a better way to do this than grid cartographer. My only answer is I actually kind of like the noodly and fiddly nature of going back and forth. The other thing I've seen recently is an open source grid dungeon mapping tool from someone on the RPG Codex forums called Gridmonger. And I tried it very briefly. I haven't really dug into it yet. Mostly my feeling here is I have a sunk cost. I paid for Grid Cartographer, so I wanted to try it out. But Gridmonger, for the 5 minutes that I played with it, looked comparatively sophisticated. It is very manual. It does not have the automated player tracking feature that Grid Cartographer has. That's partially, I think, a philosophical choice on the part of the author. So if you were just doing what I'm doing here, which is drawing your map literally by hand, I think Gridmonger would probably be a very good, a very reasonable choice. And, you know, it's perfectly free in both senses of the word. So let me continue to map out. This looks like it's going to be a chamber with a bunch of rooms that presumably are going to have monsters. So you'll notice, if you're not familiar with Wizardry, you may be wondering, where are the battles? Where are the monsters? Well, you definitely encounter them most often in these games when you go through a door. And I have been avoiding going through a door here, specifically because I'm enjoying my wanky mapping of these rooms. Now, you do have random encounters in the hallways sometimes. My sense is, and let me be clear, I'm making this up. I don't know this for sure. There are differences between these scenarios that the scenario editor lets you adjust. Let's go through this door. I bet we're going to get a monster if we or combat if we go through. And we do. We have an encounter, and we've been surprised by a number of rats. I'm not too worried about rats. So we're going to advance through. It's only a couple of rats. We will just fight them. We're not going to use any spells or anything. So one thing I've noticed that's very personal, well, let me explain a bit about Wizardry mechanics since we're here. Since we've gone through a door, usually when you have a combat after you go through a door, you will find a chest rather than just a pile of gold, which means we can have our thief inspect it, look for a trap. There is no trap. Most of the first floor of the Price of Deception, most of these chests have no trap. That definitely feels like one of the things you can adjust, the trap frequency. One thing that is definitely adjustable is how mapping works. So, for example, in the previous scenario that you saw when I started this stream, which was Half-Hearted RPG, there's actually a mini-map that gets filled in automatically on the upper left-hand side of the screen. And that mini-map is not here, and I don't believe you can have it in Price of Deception. So the scenario creator has a lot of flexibility for what the difficulty of the game is. To give you another example, in Half-Hearted RPG, when you go back to the town, as soon as you step up the stairs into the town, all your spell points come back. In the Price of Deception and in the Traveler's Property, which was the other kind of orthodox scenario that I played, you have to rest at the end to recover your spell points. So these are men in black, which means they're probably wizards, which means they might cast a spell. But I think I'm still, again, just going to do fight, 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 parry, 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 as we say. You might notice, if you're a really old school wizardry person, that I do have people in the back row who are fighting. That is because the Wizardry Gaiden games have the idea of reach. I believe this was introduced in, I apologize if I'm getting it wrong, either Wizardry 5 or Wizardry 6. Or actually, maybe it was introduced in Gaiden and made its way over to Wizardry 5. I'm not quite sure of the history of that. I should look that up. But this idea that if they have a weapon in the back row that does have reach, then they can fight. So if we look in the back row, we could see that this priest here, Vasilisa, has a flail, and we see, if you look at the panel on the right, it says range, middle range. So the flail can reach the front row of monsters from the back row of players. Similarly, I think Artemis here is rocking a short bow. Whereas my mage is just holding a dagger, so she cannot participate in these fights except by spellcasting. Of course, in Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, it was fight, 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 parry, parry, parry. Your front row could melee and your rear row could not. These are probably kobolds, so I'm not going to spend any time on them. Okay, and you could see another nice quality of life thing here. We get a little indicator that this character, Artemis, is ready to level up. Also on status, you could see that small up arrow telling you that they're ready to level up. So we're just going to go in here and clear out these rooms, even though there's no mapping to do here anymore. Okay. And I think there's just the one more. Oh, here we got a random encounter. Getting surprised. I kind of hate that. I really do need my mages to... You can see I'm specifying what group to fight here. You might notice how quickly I'm going through this. That is because one thing I really like about Five Ordeals quite a lot is it has superb keyboard support. So I am playing this game, no gamepad. I could use a gamepad. It'll work with a gamepad if you prefer that. But I'm using a keyboard. It's very nice. You probably hear my keyboard on the stream. I apologize for that, but what can you do? That's half the fun of Wizardry. All right. So at this point, it looks to me like I'm not going to bother moving my bug to fill this in. I only use I call it the bug. I only use the player indicator in Grid Cartographer pretty much at the end of my session so that I could remember where I was. So one question you might have is, so is there no map at this at all? This uses, the spell is called Wizard Eye in this game. In Wizardry 1, you probably remember it as Doomapick. Doomapick in traditional Wizardry just tells you where you are in relation to the stairs to the castle, how many levels down, east and north. And then in later versions, it actually draws a map. And this is similar to what the way that the new reboot by Digital Eclipse works. So we can see here, there are a couple of rooms I haven't gone in. I'm not going to bother to fill in this little, the squares I didn't step on here in this room, because that's pretty clearly just a missed spot. But I am going to go back to these rooms up here. I think I wanted to go in them and I got distracted exploring this area. But now that I've done this Wizard Eye, you get this spell. You can leave tips. Your tips are not full notes, they're just these symbols. So let's say I wanted to note that there was an encounter over here. You can pick whatever you want as your symbol and you can put it on the map. And those will stay there. And then after you've cast Wizard Eye, you can get back your last 3 maps without casting a spell. So if I hit V here for View Map, I can cast a new Wizard Eye, which will let me annotate the map. Or I can go back here to what's called the log, and I can see the last one I cast. You cannot, unfortunately, annotate the map in the log. You can only do annotations when you've cast a spell. So I'm not going to do that here. Okay, so I'm glancing over at my Grid Cartographer map. We're going up here. And I completely went the wrong way. I think I needed to go through this door, which is right over here. We'll move my guy. I am right here at this point, so you could follow along. I know it can be very hard to follow, in part because we're not animating things. Right, so we just went through here. And if I recall correctly, oh, I see, I marked those doors as locked, but I think I might have opened them. Yeah, so there were bars here, but now they're open. As soon as we step through, we're having a fight. I think I got a warning from one of the NPCs in this section that there were undead ahead. So I kind of expect to encounter undead in these rooms. Oh, just a few bats, not a big deal. Oh, and there's a switch. I don't know what that switch does. I did not hit the switch yet. I'm going to go back and do it. But first I want to see if this door is open. Right, so this door is closed. That is, move over here. That's this door, and it is still closed. Presumably, this switch over here, which is right here, I'm going to switch Grid Cartographer to this marker panel. I'm going to take this switch, and I'm going to put it right here. To move switches in the Five Ordeals, you search, and that acts to push the switch. All right, so let's see what's in here. This is the moment of truth. So now we're getting some plot. This is going to be the thief who has been following us through the entire dungeon, giving us helpful or not so helpful advice. We enter the room, we hear, "Wait a second," from behind us. It doesn't take a genius to figure out whose voice it was. And so we have some beautiful art. The monster art was by Jun Suemi, and it has a very consistent feel. I really do like it. It works for this game quite well. We are aware of the spell Dispel. It neutralizes undead monsters. You can uncurse them and send them to the grave where they belong. Priest can use the spell by default, but bishops and lords can use it too. You don't get XP this way, but if you want to thin the herd, it's pretty useful. All right, so that's a pretty clear sign that we are going to encounter, a boss battle here. And these little floor panels seem to be used as kind of boss tiles, and also you sometimes see them used for stairs. Probably, maybe my one complaint about the Five Ordeals. I mean, I'm sure I have more than one complaint, but one of the things that's a little bit of a missed opportunity is the dungeon art itself. The walls, it's all very good. It feels good, and it looks good. But there's places where the thing you're seeing is not representative of whatever it is you're going to step on. This is another thing. You will get those events will happen every time you step on a panel facing in the correct direction. All right, so let's trigger this and see what happens. Hopefully I won't be murdered. Okay, we've got 5 groups of skeletons. So what am I going to do here? We'll have our first guys focus on them. Let's have Vasilisa here dispel the second group. And we'll have our mage. I really do love the interface for casting spells. We'll have our mage really nuke these people in the back. Okay, hopefully I won't get murdered. I don't think I will. I think at this point, this party is somewhat over-leveled. Ooh, they resisted the spell. Very surprised that I didn't kill any of them. I think this must be, they must have pretty high resistances because they're trying to teach me here to use Dispel to deal with these dudes. I'll cast Thunder. Ooh, taking some damage here. Yeah, they're resisting all the... Yeah, so they very much want me to use Dispel here. Okay, so we will have him cast Dispel on the first party. We'll have them do the second party, or the third party. All right, good. And let's just camp briefly and heal up here. Do a mega heal. Suzuki up here. One of my samurais is really took a lot of hits. So I am tempted to run back to the castle, but I really want to know what's on this square. There's a spring. I used all of those spells, and this will probably heal them. Yeah, so it's recovering hit points. Okay. Can I do this as much as I want? I can. Okay, well, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have wasted the spells. And let me drop something telling me that we have some recovery. So what is a good recovery item? Health healer. That'll go right there. And we're going to drop just a wall back there. And that actually completes this, this level, I think. It's the entire first level of The Price of Deception. I think I want to dive, since I'm on the... Okay, so this is great. So one of my characters was just beheaded by whoever we're fighting here, man in chain, probably a samurai, I'm guessing. So how does one save scum in this game? And I hesitate to even call it save scumming, because Wizardry has some unfair mechanics, and they're so unfair that cheating to recover them is almost considered part of the game. There's kind of two philosophies here. One philosophy is you're going to create a metric ton of characters, take them all into the dungeon, level them all up, and like the game XCOM, you're going to accept that the dungeon is a brutal place and you're going to lose some of these characters. And the reason you eventually have to do this, no matter what, is that some of these conditions can't be recovered. In particular, there's one called getting stoned. Yes, I know, like turned to stone, where the only way to recover it is to go to the temple in town and have enough money to heal it. Now, I've got enough money in this game because I've been playing it for a while, but early in Wizardry, money is a huge problem. It's probably one of the biggest structural problems with the game, is that by the later parts of the game, you have more money than you know what to do with, but at the beginning of the game, if one of your characters dies, you literally almost certainly will not have enough money to afford to have them resurrected. And then even if you do have enough money to have them resurrected, sometimes that resurrection fails. Generally speaking, if a resurrection fails, the character turns to ash. You can then try again to have them brought back to life at the temple, or with the right character, a right priest spell. And then if that fails, they're gone forever. The ash blows away. So most players cheat when they suffer what they'd consider an unfair death. Now, I don't really consider this death unfair. This guy's just dead. I have enough money, I can bring him back. But for the purposes of showing you, if you soft reset the game while you're in combat, which you do by hitting Control F1, I believe, you're brought back to the main menu. We can go into the game, go to the edge of town, and we resume. And essentially, we have now resumed before this, before our last encounter. In fact, you can see that, let me make sure that I know where it was. Yes, you can see that this character, we had used up all of their mega heals, but we had not yet gone into this waiting pool. So it saves kind of after your last combat, or sometimes it seems like after the last door you've walked through. Again, I'm going to justify it. As I said, in the Apple II days, the way you did this, instead of hitting Control F1, you reached out and you flicked to open the door on the disk drive so that the database could not be updated. So from my perspective, this is absolutely a traditional way of playing Wizardry. All right, so then we have those things there. I want to go out the front door here. And I want to take this guy back to the castle, these guys back to the castle, if for no other reason, because my thief has leveled up. All right, I just stepped on this rotator. I believe I'm saying that it rotated clockwise. So I'm going to turn left, and I think that's correct. Yes. The first level of Price of Deception, I really like it. It is extremely well designed as an intro to all of the wizardry mechanics, one at a time. All of the kind of strange things about wizardry, this level does a really nice job of introducing them to you slowly. All right, so now we have this dark area. Let's see, I got to do this carefully. I'm going to, so you can see that I've marked this dark area on this map. You can see how it's a little bit darker. And I believe there's a door there, even if I can't see it. Okay, so I'm going to walk into the dark area. I'm going to turn left, and I'm going to go forward. And okay, so there's not a door. I'm going to turn right, forward, left, forward, forward. All right, I love being able to update my map. And I want to emphasize, you do not have to do the thing I'm doing with the map here. You probably should not. The right way to do this is cast Wizard Eye. And every place you've been will fill in. Oh, and apparently I have not been in that room. So let's go do that as our last thing before we go back up to the dungeon. Or go back up to the castle. Men in chain, and we surprise them. When you surprise an enemy, you cannot cast spells. But hopefully we'll be able to take care of them here. Only one left. Hi, women. Well, since I know I'm going back to the castle, I'm going to go ahead and spend a spell on it. Ooh, and my priests just leveled up with just that one battle. That's perfect. What I just did there, I just walked through the room so that the next time I cast Wizard Eye, that room is viewed as having been walked on. So where am I going here? I think I'm going to go up here through this other dark area, through that door, and then to the left, and that will bring us back to the first floor. Okay, so we're going to go here. If I'm honest, I kind of like having the Grid Cartographer automap. I used it on Eye of the Beholder and a couple of other games, and I feel like it's the perfect amount of sugar for the game. But I recognize now we're on a new floor. Let's go ahead and cast another Wizard Eye just so we know where we are. I guess I didn't have to do that. I can go to Grid Cartographer. I went to the trouble of mapping the first level. All right, and I remember this. One of the things that I find that I really appreciate about these type of games and why I play them is that you play them for a surprisingly short amount of time before the space gets brain cells in your own head. And I find that very satisfying. I can't quite explain why. So I guess the last thing we'll do here, I feel like I've been doing this for about half hour, 45 minutes. Probably time to wrap it up today. Show you what it's like to level up in Wizardry the Five Ordeals. It's going to look a lot like traditional Wizardry. And that's really the takeaway here. Fundamentally, Five Ordeals is a Wizardry Gaiden construction set. And so Wizardry Gaiden is really trying to have the vibe of Wizardry 1, 2, and Wizardries 1, 2, and 3, while having completely different IP. The stories are not the same. I think that 59 Studios and the creators are very careful that they don't want this to infringe on the other rights holders. The rights of Wizardry are very complicated and tangled. There's multiple parties who have the rights to make these games in different places. So they're very conscientious about that. But the feel, the mechanics, which of course are not copyrightable, feel very similar. So we're going to go to the Adventurers Inn, and I believe it was my well, you know what? Let's have everyone nap. So if we look down here, 8,500. If we look down here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, we could see that their mage spells, they only have 2 of their 5 first level spells left, so they will sleep, and they will now have all 5 of those spells back. Let's have our priests rest, and they're going to gain or lose some of their attribute points and potentially learn some new spells. So the spell that I really want here is this spell called Protection, which will reduce my party's armor class by 2, which is very important. It's kind of one of the first real important milestones, is getting that spell. So let's go to the tavern. I'll show you just some of the party management stuff while we're here. So we can go and we can look at their spells. And we can see that we have the protection spell, and we get some flavor text here telling us what each of these spells do. Let's also look at her and see if she has it. She did not get protection. She got some other spells. All right. And let's see what we've got here in terms of unidentified items. And so, of course, one of the things you do in Wizardry is you identify your items. And the easiest way to do that, you could either pay for it at the trading post, or you can have... Oh, no. Ooh. Right. I think... Why can't I do that? Because he is good. Ooh, this is going to be very interesting. Right, because he's a good bishop, he cannot join this party. Oh, but I created an evil bishop. Wonderful. They're both level 1. So we're going to go ahead and add him to the party. And there's a lot of convenience tools here. So this is our bishop. We can say gather your unknown items. We can try and identify these things. It's actually going to be fairly difficult for him at level 1. Again, because it is keyboard, you can just try it a bunch of times and hope that you stumble into it. But I'm not going to sit here and do that. Well, ooh, that's a good one. Level is insufficient. So maybe I'll take this bishop into the dungeon and try and give him a few levels. But I don't need to do that on this stream. As I said, I'll probably voice over the earlier stream from last week. I don't know if I'm going to stream or record the 3rd level. There'll be a lot more mapping in that. but maybe I will. So this is Wizardry the Five Ordeals, with a little bit of grid cartographer on the side. I can't quite explain why these games have such a grip on my imagination, other than I played them at just the right age. But I've enjoyed taking this journey with you. I hope you've enjoyed it too. You've been watching Tea Leaves Programming. We've been gaming like it's 1979. Thanks for watching.